Welcome to the Nurture Podcast. My name is Iris Sullivan-Dare, and I'm here with the beautiful Ginger Edwards. And this is the place where we explore that edge between what is and what is possible as we co-create the world that we all live together in, and this beautiful planet Earth.
I really like your intros. They're so nurturing. Um, well, hello, and we will kick off with our little intro question. Iris, what are you nurturing right now?
I am nurturing this vision
Mm.
for an art project I'm going to do with a bunch of children, um, in which we create a story scroll from a story I wrote that depicts a pretty intense conflict resolved peacefully
Mm.
by people being fierce, not in a violent way, but like fiercely centered in their love for each other and protecting each other. And um, yeah, yeah. Anyway, I'm super excited because um, I'm super exciid actually.
Nice.
I'm kind of being hedgy
Yeah,
about
you are.
so the so it's kind of a mythical story based on this little snippet that I heard about um, during Ireland's past when all the land was like divided up and given to English lords and they like raised rents and like um, that there were situations in which the villagers would surround, kind of resist,
Mm.
and one way is to like for the women to link arms and surround a cottage to
Mm.
prevent the people from being evicted,
Wow.
um, or from having I mean, they would just burn their cottages down
Mm.
instead of like, and it's very evocative of, it's part of why the Irish are so fierce about Palestine, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
they have ancestral deep, um, yeah, the
yeah.
and so anyway, so I'm excited, really super excited to work on that project. And
Nice.
I don't know, I feel like almost like we should start over.
Why? Well, I'm curious, like, what about it is so exciting to you? Is it the story? Is it the kids? Is it the actual art medium? Like, what's really drawing your
Well,
excitement to it?
the idea, like that I've been wanting to use the cranky format, which is basically like it's a scroll. The story is the illustrations are on a scroll,
Mhm.
and that scroll is put into a box, and so you crank it along, hence the cranky. And so I'm very interested in that format. Um, but also I'm really loving this idea of doing it as a collaboration and being able to have that experience because it'll take a while to do it. So
Mhm.
to have that experience of having the children illustrate the things, I think is really and because years ago I did this peace flag project where I made these kits and we brought them to classrooms, and it was a way to talk about nonviolence and about peace.
Mm.
And in the early 2000s, well, there was some conflicts. There's always conflicts going on, and just I just feel like it's really powerful to talk about the stuff directly with kids in a way that is not totally, um, just horrific. I think
Mhm.
that that young people are aware that stuff is happening and it makes them feel worried and like, oh no, no, like if we just don't address it at all, I don't think that's good. And if we just give them full reign to like,
Yeah.
I think that's also problematic. So
Mhm.
anyway, I'm excited by that. And then of course I'm excited because we're going to use madder root, and madder is the queen.
Mm.
So it's the queen of dyes, and also just, yeah. So,
Oh.
and I earlier today I was feeling really kind of furrowed brow, and but I'm feeling super excited now.
I love I love how you describe your feelings of I was feeling furrowed brow. And then art happened, and
And
then
that
it's
hard
all
happened.
totally
Yeah.
excited again. What was your brow furrowed about?
So I think I texted you this morning about this. So I've been thinking about how social media is the equivalent of an opium den.
You did say that. I really wanted you to elaborate because I was like, wow, I've
And
never heard it called that before.
and
Do tell.
and so like how the whole opium wars, like,
Yeah.
and like, they wanted to trade with China, and China's like, yeah, no, we're cool. We're good.
Mhm.
We're good with what we got. And then they flooded it with opium, and so they could, it's horrific again. And then I was realizing, I'm like, oh my God, we're all consuming social media, and it's like it's not recreational. it's it's
It's opium.
it's like opium. It's more like opium than it is like recreation. And then this whole crazy thing,
Mm.
I was also thinking about how, like, I've been teaching a long time,
Mhm.
off and on. And years ago, I would teach a workshop. I would literally hand draw a flyer, bring it down to the copy shop,
Mhm. I
print them
remember those
out,
days.
and
Mhm.
put it up on bulletin boards around. And I would fill my classes. It would be like no problem, snip snap,
Mm.
you know? Or like, I taught at the college. They'd send out the the schedule. So like I filled my class every term for 8 years, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
like, and then the summer I totally filled those summer intensive classes, like no problem. Like it
Mhm.
was like, and I was like, I'm like, you know what? This idea that Facebook, which I don't really do Facebook, but
Mhm.
that I do Instagram, and that would replace it. It really doesn't. One, because you have zero
Mhm.
control. It's sort of like putting up posters be on the back wall of gas stations
Mhm.
where nobody is, rather than doing it at the grocery store where everybody looks, like,
Right.
and so I've been like, all right, so what's a nurture culture
Mm.
person to do to turn that around and just opt out? Like, it's hard to opt out of the dominant culture. and
Mm.
and when extraction culture has usurped basically all the ways that we connect to each other, that's very
Mm.
problematic. So it's like, what's next? Like, what's the next evolution of us? And I'm not like saying like, oh, I'm so nostalgic for the days of Kinko's, though that was pretty great. I'm
Yeah.
saying, I'm saying, how do we connect to each other? And it's like,
Mhm.
it's not just an email list.
Mm.
And so anyway, so I'm just like, yeah, anyway.
Hmm. Well, what do you think? I mean, you could still put up flyers now. Do you not feel like that? Like, what has changed in terms of like, the way you used to do it? College used to send out a notice, you know,
I think, like,
flyers would
well,
go up.
for one thing, like, there's very few active bulletin boards
Uh-huh.
around.
Right.
There are some around that they still exist, but
Mm-hmm.
like they're usually tucked away. They're not like front, they're
Right.
not like not the commons, right? They're
Yep.
not like I was thinking about like, what are the antidotes? What are the things that make me feel connected? And I was like, well, listening to KMUN, where I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually listening to real people. It's community.
Hmm.
owned and operated, volunteer operated radio station, which we are so lucky that we have.
We are. Yeah.
We're like so lucky. And I'm like, oh, it's like, and we still have a local-ish owned newspaper, and like Hipfish still exists. So there's some media that's somewhat independent. So like, there, I don't know. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. I do, yeah.
Well, what's interesting is I think what you started to get into there was at the commons, like where our attention used to go to find information, right? Was we'd look into windows in our community. Like we look on bulletin boards and, you know, posters on coffee shop windows. And I mean, I remember having this business in the 90s because I started my first business back when I was 19 in college. And like, yeah, that same feeling, like running off a million flyers at Kinko's, plastering a college campus, putting them up all over the place. And you just it kind of worked. It always worked. I had my own little radio show on college radio, and I would just promote the shit out of my little store, my vintage clothing store. And yeah, people I mean, it was a very out of the way place, and people found me and came, and then word got out. And so I think that it's interesting when you have phones, because everybody, yeah, we're looking down, right? We're not really seeking. The information box in our hand is very powerful, so we
Yes.
are scrolling for anything you want to know. Like you can look up ancient Irish history to like, what's happening this weekend, and then it's a pay to play system. I mean, that's the bottom line with those. People think that social media is, I don't know. I think there's still kind of a belief out there, especially among business owners, that you post things and that, like, you're right, people see them. But if you're not paying these algorithms to put your stuff in the front, the chances are nobody, like very few people are seeing it, maybe a handful of people are seeing it. So it's, I think that's a misconception is definitely, it's a cash forward, it's like buying an ad basically. And even that is not guaranteed to put it in front of the people you might want to have see it. So
Right.
there is, if we're just talking it from a business perspective, yeah, it is a bit of a conundrum. And like what I've been taught from my marketing teachers, which I do study marketing as like as a survival tool of owning a small business, is your email list is absolutely everything. Like that is like the entire goal, because email is the one, it's one thing
Correct.
left that's a direct communication. It's like sending someone a postcard in the mail versus going to a, football stadium. That's how I think of, Instagram, even bigger, a football stadium the size of, Bangkok or whatever, and just being like, hey, I'm doing this class, and it's full of people, and they're all just yelling the same thing. They're all like,
Yes.
I'm doing
Yes.
this, and I'm,
Yes.
I'm dyeing my cat blue, and I'm doing this over here, and everyone's just like crazy party going on, and you're over there being like, but I'm teaching a dye class, and maybe somebody will notice that, like that is interested in what you're doing. Maybe not, but it's so much, like there's just so much going on. And what is more interesting to me is like the opium part. Like, why are we so into it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what is
yeah.
the attraction? And I think it's fascinating because, part of it is this, like, it's like a self-perpetuating overwhelm. Like you get
Oh, interesting.
overwhelmed by the little triangle, or the little triangle, the rectangle in your hand is like very overwhelming because it's spewing out a million bits of data at you. And then you just can't, you isolate, right? Like you don't even want to like go into the real world because you're just like, you're already overwhelmed by what you just saw on like a couple minute scroll. It's just like, including all the political stuff, all the environmental stuff, all,
Oh,
and
yeah.
art and people making funny things. And the juxtaposition of all those next to each other is what makes me crazy. Like, or actually it doesn't. I just zone out. That's the thing. Your brain can't handle the emotional roller coaster of Palestinian children to like leggings on sale to,
Right,
cute
right,
cat
right.
video, and back to like, horrible image of police violence, and back to, advertisement for, coffee, and like boom, 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 boom. And at some point your brain just goes back. I think this is the opium you're talking about.
Yeah.
Just goes into that receptive state because it's too much to process. So we can't emotionally react to all of that, especially not at the speed we're moving it.
Yeah.
So we use social media, I think, to feel connected and informed, but at the same time to like go into that state that television gives you too. It's just like an alpha state, I think it's in the brain. It's just like you're not really engaging, you're just receiving. which is why, and it comes from like just having too much at once. And therefore it's a numbing. And I think that's why it's addictive, because we have this overwhelm going on in the culture at all times. So the numbingness. And what's another interesting part of what I heard about social media is that the algorithm is so smart that it will throw in things that you don't believe in every once in a while. Have you ever noticed that if you're scrolling, it'll be like people I like, people I follow, and then something like that. Like,
What?
why is this on my feed? Like some random, for me, it's always like some, guy just spewing out some political thing. I was like, whoa, you are not like what I want to be looking at. And they do that on purpose so that you get used to this like like disconnected feeling. So when they put advertisements in there,
You don't reject them.
you don't reject them because you're used to enough like discoordinated things that are in the feed that you just kind of bypass it. And so it's actually, they're so smart. They know our brain chemistry so well that they can actually give us just the right amount of things to keep us in that state of receptivity. Because if they put too much things that we object to, right, we start to like wake up and be like, whoa, I don't like any of this. They don't want
It's
that.
easy not to have a TV. Like
Yeah.
when I was younger, I just didn't have a TV because it was like there's nothing on TV
Oh,
that I'm interested in,
yeah. I watched a
you
lot of
know?
TV.
I mean, well, now though, here's the thing. Like now you can watch
Yeah.
TV on YouTube, you know? Like I
Yes.
remember
I know.
you
Yes.
I remember you saying this thing um create before consuming.
Mm.
That was you. Wasn't that you?
I don't think it's, I like it. Explain it. It probably wasn't me. I don't remember saying it, but that
So
doesn't mean I didn't say it.
it doesn't somebody told me I believe it to be you.
Could have been me.
Um but create before consuming. So like
Mm.
instead of like looking at my phone first thing in the morning, I
Oh.
try to
Mhm.
like spend some time doing something doing something generative from my own consciousness,
Yeah.
especially in the morning because it's like I can look at my phone to see what time it is or to
Mhm.
use a meditation app is my
Right.
new and like
Mhm.
but ideally I don't do either of those things until I've had some time to kind of like be here
Mm.
now and
Mhm.
wake up and then to kind of think about what I want to kind of create out of my day.
Mhm.
And not that and then it's like, when I'm having coffee, I look at crap on my phone. I mean, like it doesn't
Yeah.
but it has been and I keep it's like my little mantra now. Like if I find myself like I'm trying to listen to something and then it ends and then you go look at your phone and then you look at 18 other things and I'm like
Yep.
create before consuming. Like
Like
it's
it.
like and like I'm like that's why I'm like I'm so glad I finally got a new radio so I
Mm.
can just listen to KMUN instead of like using my phone as something
Yeah.
to have playing while I'm doing stuff in my studio.
Mhm.
I mean, I do like to have a soundtrack sometimes.
Yep.
And if it's coming out of my phone, I have to interact with my phone, which is like tar baby.
It's the opium. Yeah, it's like the
It's
drug right there.
and so
Yeah, no,
it's
I get it. It's really addictive, and it's designed to be addictive. Like, we're fighting, they've spent billions of dollars to design that
literally
to be incredibly addictive. They've studied brain chemistry, they studied brain pattern. Like they know us. These are not like there's no accident, and like they know exactly how to keep us on those phones for as much, amount of times as they can sell us shit. It's amazing. It's kind of I'm almost like, as a mindset coach, I'm kind of fascinated by the whole thing, like how well they do it. Like it's really incredible. And it's also, frightening because it really does work. Like, I mean, I find myself just, yeah, like before I even know it, like all of a sudden the phone is in my hand and I'm like 10 minutes deep and I'm like, wait, what is going on? Like I actually, I'm like, why did I even pick that up? I don't even remember how this started. I'm just in it now. I'm down a road. I'm like, looking. I'm all about travel ones right now. So I'm like down and I'm looking at some beach in Greece and I'm looking up a hotel and I'm like, what's going on there? And I'm like, wait, what are you doing? Come back, come back to your day. It's wild. And also, I had another person say another good thing for social media. Here's one: if there was no social media, if nobody could see what you're doing, would you still do it? Like
yes.
if you couldn't post it, if you couldn't show
Ah,
anybody,
ah,
like there's nobody's looking, is it something you still want to do just for you, and because I think a lot of this is approval. A lot of what's going on social media is we have this like, look at me. Am I acceptable? Please see me. Am I validated? That's I mean, a lot of that is what's happening. So
Which
an
is like,
interesting question to ask yourself when you're thinking about, yeah, your life. Just like if there's no photographs of it, no Instagram, no Facebook, whatever you're on, TikTok, whatever you're doing. Yeah. How do you feel about it then? Nobody's noticing. Because that was how it was back in the day. Like, we are old enough that we remember,
yeah, yeah,
we would
yeah.
do stuff and just like,
Just
maybe
do it.
your friends would come to an art show. Yeah. Like, maybe someone would come to your store, but it was like, there was no expectation that everyone was seeing it, looking at it, unless they were there doing it. Like they're in your art show, then you're seeing your art, but not everybody in the whole world is weighing it, getting to see it or prove it.
Yeah,
So you don't know.
it's totally wild, because it's like I'm small potatoes in the land of of Instagram, right? Like,
Mhm.
but I have almost 4,000 followers. I'm from a town of 1,200 people.
Exactly.
So
If
it's like,
4,000 people
what?
showed up at your art show, you would be
I'd
like,
be
what?
freaking out. So it's like,
Exactly.
and it's like some
Mhm.
of the people, I mean, people yeah, like have tens of thousands
Yeah.
of, and it's
So,
like, what does that even mean? Like, how is
some people
that
have
even
millions. I mean, people have
millions?
millions of
Yeah,
followers. Yeah.
millions.
I don't know what it means. I think it just it's interesting, it's like and maybe it means nothing. That's the other thing is it doesn't really mean anything. I think people can attach meaning to it. You can certainly attach monetary value to those numbers at a certain extent, like it means something for income, but for like Kim Kardashian, who probably has like, God knows how many, like 20 million people following her, what that actually means to her or like means to her happiness, no idea. Like I would expect, and I've heard coaches who like coach those top level, celebrities and corporate executives and stuff. And they always report back. They're like, hey, listen, just so you know, like the top of that mountain, they're not happy. Like
Right.
they're struggling because it's the mountain of never enough. And that's, I think, the downfall of social media. It's like there is never enough followers. If that's the mountain you're climbing, looking for that approval rate, looking for more and more and more. I mean, there's so much of that as America, like we just want more. I mean, there's no end to it. It's like an endless void, we're trying to fill, which of course they know, which is why it's so
Right.
opiate. It's an opiate because we're just like, oh, we cannot get enough of this sensation, and I think it is like it's addictive that way, that especially if you, I think especially for small potatoes in a way, because we're like, we're
Right.
not really used to it. And it does kind of feel like you're a little bit more important, a little bit more seen, a little bit more connected. Um, and
But
I think,
also like in the early 2000s, I had my little Dreambird Studio business, and at that time I was primarily making baby slings and I was making natural dyed play silks for the Waldorf market.
mhm,
And so I had one employee who sewed for me. I
mhm,
sewed, and then I did all the dyeing. And I had an ad in Mothering Magazine. I had some ads on Waldorf sites. I went to a couple of Waldorf markets, and I purchased targeted Google ads, which you
mhm,
can't get those kinds of ads now.
mhm.
So, and like the internet in 2004 and 2005 was a wildly different place than it is now. So
Okay.
I would make my ads, I would send them out, and I would not interact with them again until the next time I wanted to run an ad.
Mm,
You make a post for Instagram, you check it 1,000 times.
mm,
Probably, I don't know, 1,000 times, but I check it all day long, and like I'm like, oh, like, and then you have to respond if anybody, because then you're hoping that that will make it be seen more, and
mhm.
it's like, it's like, oh my God, and he's like, even though I know I'm being manipulated, I still go back in. It's like I'm like, oh
Yeah, it's
well.
true. I know it's, and I think, and I've heard people say like people are leaving social media right now. Like there's a exodus happening because people are just burned out. Like it's overwhelming. They're not getting anything from it. And then of course, as AI enters the scene, more and more of what content we're seeing are just generated by computers. who know the algorithm. So it's not even real people creating content.
Ah,
And I
yeah,
know that's happening because it's, as your business, it's offered to you. Like there's ads towards businesses being like, we'll create your AI content for you. So you
you
don't
don't
have
have
to.
to.
We'll schedule it. We'll post it. We know the algorithm. We can actually do it better than you can, which is probably true because,
Right,
I'm
right,
a little
right.
small potato. So, and they're playing with the big guns. But again, that's a pay to play. But how weird is that? Then all of a sudden it's like computers talking to computers. It's AI talking to AI across social media. And at that point, what are humans doing on there? I think people will eventually start bailing out of these platforms. What the other thing will be, I don't know, but we can talk
So,
about it. What do you think it should be? This is like the nurture
ah,
culture version, because there are pros to it. I mean, I
oh yeah, like
like being able to connect and see people across the world. I mean, it's really, really cool.
oh, I love the like instant translate thing because I'm able
Yeah.
to like connect with people that whose primary language is not English.
Yeah.
And we can talk to each other. It's like that's like magic. And I do have people that I've connected. I mean, the art show in November, there's people from 3 different countries, you
Yeah.
know? And so it's like, and people are speaking up that they're, it's awesome. Like I'm told,
Yeah.
like that is awesome.
Yeah.
But
And
I
there's
almost feel like that happens despite like
mm,
that is like people connecting to each other.
mhm,
That's not, it's not like those connections are not brought to you by the algorithm. Like,
like you sought them out.
I think, yeah, like it's like, oh, I mean, sometimes like people, like you get shown, would you like this account or that, but a
Mhm.
lot, it's so interesting to me because I feel like some of the most interesting people that I follow have like 800 followers. And
Mhm.
so it's like you realize that you can't take it seriously about how great you are, depending on how many followers you have, because I think it's
Yeah.
very disconnected. I mean, it's just like music, and we've known that for years, right? Like I think about like Kathryn Claire and Heather Christie and like immensely, immensely talented
Mhm.
musicians and singers. And it's like, why are they not Madonna? Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot of moving parts for who gets to be.
This is actually an interesting point you're bringing up, because I think this is where we're going. I would, if I had to like forecast the future, and I kind of like it, like the nurture culture version of what is happening, is that I do think the people, it's better to have, even 800 is a big number, but it's better to have 800 people who like you, like who are really into what you do, than to have 2 million people who are interested in this performance that you're doing. And as soon as you
Yes,
change the
yes.
performance, they have no interest in you as a person whatsoever. Like if Kim Kardashian stopped Kim Kardashianing, whatever that is, whatever it is she's doing over there, if she dropped that act, like all those people would be like, we don't give a shit about you. We just like the act. We think, to hate or love you, we just like to watch the act. Right. So she doesn't really have a community of people who love and support her, as her. Like we don't even know her. Right. So, and by the way, I don't watch the Kardashians. I'm just
Okay.
using that as an example.
I was
Let
thinking,
me make it really clear that I am not invested in the Kardashians
I
in
was
any
just
way. And
thinking,
matter of
I'm
fact, I
like,
couldn't even name them all. I only pick out the primary one
I
because I don't even know all their names. Okay.
I don't think if I saw her walking down the street, I would even know who she was.
Well, right. That's probably okay. No shade to the women out there making money. It's fine. But I do think that is an interesting, the niche, like, finding your 50 people who love what you do is actually, I think, more powerful than
Well, and
having
also,
5 million people who kind of, think you're funny for this one thing. And like, you entertain them in a flash, and you better keep that up. Because if you don't keep showing up and doing your dance, then they're gone, and so there's a lot
it's
of
like,
attention grabbing things. But if there's real connection happening, there are people who, they're actually watching you as like, they're trying to connect in a way that like, wow, you really inspire me. Like, or what you're doing is deeply interesting. Like what, hopefully people listening to this podcast feel that way. No matter what we're rambling on about, like they're actually kind of interested in the ideas and the voices that we have. And we're not pretending, and it changes every week and we mix it up and they're still there. Right. That is what I think ideally you would have these groups of people. And I think I have that on my email list, people who have followed me through many incarnations of my business. And not everybody stays. I change my game up and some people drop off, and that's fine. But there is a core people who are just maybe just fascinated by watching the journey, or I feel like they're really my community of, I don't know, engaged subscribers. I'm not sure what I would call them, but they've come to things I've done, or they're just interested. Maybe they've never come to anything I've done, but they're interested in it, and they're
It was so
following.
it was so interesting to me during the Scorcher adventure, my tenure at the Scorcher, is this realization of the role that we can be playing for someone, and the meaning that can be enriching their life is not, it's occulted from us. Like
Yeah.
they were people that were so happy that the Scorcher existed, even though they literally never came in. Like they
Yeah.
came in once a year, if that.
Yeah.
But the fact that it exists made them happy
Yeah.
way more often than that.
And I
And
just want to hold on. I want to
yeah,
pause you there, because this is
yeah,
a really powerful moment to absorb for everybody listening. That is such a great example of, like, you have to understand that your life, even if there's so many people that people who know about you, who you've inspired, just because you exist. You know what I mean? Like, you're giving your business as an example, something you put a lot of life force into, but I think it's true for all of us. I
yes,
think
yes,
that we have this idea that we're, like, doing this thing, and, like, people are thinking these things based on what we're doing. But no, like, you could have just bumped into somebody, you know what I mean? And you could have had an impact on them. Like, you existing on the planet is powerful. You don't need to understand all the ways that your
yeah.
life just being here has rippled through everybody else's lives that you interacted with. You'll never know that. But I trust and believe it's like 10 million times more than what your brain is telling you it is, because your brain's not clocking it. Your brain is tracing this line of, like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm looking for, the reception to validate me. And you're missing the wake behind you
Ah,
of all of the people that got whatever they got just from you being a body, alive, a person doing your thing. Maybe in your least moment, like maybe the moment you thought you were failing, that was when somebody was like, damn, and really got something from you. So I just wanted to, like, pull that out, because it's very powerful for people that we're not about these performances. Our brains tell us but really, who knows? Like you said, your bakery was impacting people in all kinds of ways.
yes, yes.
It's not just about the bread. It's not about the total amounts of loaves you sold, or, you know, whatever you guys were quantifying in your head about, the impact you thought you were making for whatever that looked like. It was so much bigger than that. Like,
Oh yeah. And
you know,
I think that, like, I
still
mean,
is.
it still is. It's still, I'm totally hats off to them that they're still doing it.
Mhm.
But like, I mean, think about like what is it, what's the Christmas movie with Jimmy Stewart where uh
We're both like, oh, that's
oh,
a really famous movie. I do.
so
Keep
where
going.
the angel's like, here's what you're like, what would happen if you hadn't existed, and it seems,
Miracle on 34th Street. Isn't that?
no,
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 it's
it's
not him. Oh my God. It's like the most
if you
famous
don't know
Christmas
what it
movie.
is, we can't
Everybody else
help
is
you.
screaming
We
at
can't.
their phone right now, trying to tell us what that is. Okay, we'll move on. We'll think of it.
But I feel like it's like this is wisdom. There is wisdom in that
Yeah.
we don't know, and like so Joe has this job this year as a teaching helper at the high school. So he's mentoring mostly math.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I'm not sure exactly why, but they're coached in some way, but students write thank you letters. I don't know if
Mhm.
it's just the seniors.
That's sweet.
I know. It's awesome, actually.
I was never asked to do that as a
No. And so he got
kid.
like two little thank you notes from some
That's
of
so
the kids that he
cute. It's old
mentored.
fashioned.
Oh my God. Seriously, like totally made me cry. And like,
Mhm.
it's like I think about it, just made me think about the teachers that I've had. And like I'm
Mhm.
like I have thought 1,000 times about sending a letter to my high school biology teacher
Oh,
because he made this huge impact in my life, and I've never done it. And I'm like, you know what?
oh,
He's
you
still
should.
alive. I think I'm just going to send him a letter.
Should. That's
You know what I
great.
mean?
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
like it's that sort of thing. It's like I know that
Yeah.
there are people I have never let know how
Yeah.
much they impacted me. So it makes me realize I can trust that I have impacted people
Yeah.
in ways that I have no way of knowing.
Yeah. I mean, I think if our, in some weird cosmic moment, and maybe this happens after we die, your soul is shown like all the things you didn't perceive because you were in your head and like, focused on whatever you were focused on, all the ripples the wake that you left. I think we would all just be astounded by how just being alive is like the world would not be the same without you on it. It's just we're all impacting each other all the time in all kinds of ways. It's really super cool. And I think when you get into social media that some of that follows through. Like, I mean, I've definitely learned things and followed people on social media that I've been very inspired by. Um, and so I guess it's like it's a drug that has a lot of potential. But as usual in America, it's it's being used as to sell us shit. Like that's, of course, that's what it's being used for. So capitalism has it, and it's like it's like you have to be very, very self-aware, very good with your other practices to like know when to get off. You know what I mean? It's like you can handle it, but it's if you're not clear on what your own like needs are internally, it's a mirror too. Like it'll show you. Like I'm always interested in like when I'm on it, being like, what just happened in my brain or my day that all of a sudden now I'm like stuffing food in my mouth and scrolling on my phone because that's usually indicating that an emotion has shown up from a stressor that made me feel
yes.
very quickly too. It's like I said, it's very unconscious. Like all of a sudden that's just what's happening. And I mean, I'll find myself coming home from just being engaged with real people and I'll be like, I just come home and get on my phone. It's like a way I decompress from actual engagement with people, which is interesting. Um, so yeah, it's just like it shows up in all these weird ways, and it's just a kind of a mirror of like, that's interesting, Ginger. What about that engagement, made you feel like you want to be more introverted on a platform that's not like that's also very overwhelming. So it's not like sitting there quietly in a room. Although last night I went out to my hot tub with my phone being like, that'll be fun. I'm going to sit in my hot tub and look at my phone as a way to relax. And I went outside and like the crescent moon was up and it was just so beautiful. And immediately I was like, why do I just turned off I'm like, the phone needs to go away. And I just stared at the moon and I just had this recognition of the light was so different, like staring at a glowing phone and then all of a sudden letting my eyes adjust to
Oh,
moonlight. And it was like, oh, I just felt healing, like my eyes were soothed, my brain quieted down. It was just the sound of the river and the moon. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is actually what our bodies are tuned into. This is what our bodies
yes.
like, enjoy, can handle, are soothed by. So there's also a difference between your brain and your body's needs
Mm.
being served in different ways. And the brain almost always wins because
Trick,
we're
tricky,
big monkeys.
tricky.
Yep. Big smart monkeys.
I
Yeah.
was
So
I was flea combing my cat yesterday, and I was thinking she's not here for the first. This is the first podcast she hasn't been like
it is.
sitting here. And I was realizing I'm like I am such a monkey. I
Oh
am
yeah.
such a primate, and I was like, if you were bigger and I was smaller, you would totally eat me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
not primates. They're
there.
top predators. Yeah, exactly.
And so I was just
Uh,
like, I was very aware of like, I'm like, it's so primal. It's such a
mhm.
primate thing to do to be like
Grooming. Yeah.
grooming a
Very
friend.
soothing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like calling up this. So yeah, I don't know. Have we answered anything? Were we supposed to answer this whole opiate of
I,
the masses?
the opiate of the masses, I think
I
that
mean, that's like what
getting
who said that was
outside.
that's religion is what people would say as the
Oh yeah, but
traditionally.
of course it is the religion now.
Yeah.
It's like what are the roles that it's playing, right? Like what is
Yes.
capitalism seeks to meet all of our needs outside of kin work.
Well, that's interesting.
You know, so it's like if you have a need for meaning, well, capitalism is here to help you, right?
Yes.
Like
We have a book for that.
if you're hungry, capitalism is here to help you. If
We
you
have
are
a
sick or
meals delivery service for that. Yes.
yes, capitalism has you covered. You
Yep.
don't need other people, but of course we do
Of course. Yeah.
deeply. In fact,
Yep.
that's the whole point. So
Yeah. And yet it's also, I just want to add, not to make this more complicated, but it it's eroding our ability to have real social interactions with people. That I think that is why it's easier to deal with this than real people. Real people are actually kind of complicated.
little.
They're a little complicated. Like, so, there is a way that we don't have, if you've got performance-based approval issues, right? And you get with real people, that's all up. It's more work. Now, ideally we would be living our authentic selves and we wouldn't have to do any of that. But like, even in the culture, like there's a certain amount of like, okay, well, I'm gonna make sure it's not food all over my chest and like my hair is kind of, you know what I mean? Like you got to pull yourself together a little bit. But man, you can sit on your phone and be like a total mess. And I think,
Yeah.
COVID really like got us into this like a secluded, you know, we could just hang out at home and do nothing. And so being out with groups of people, like I think we're still adjusting back, and I
Oh,
think
yeah.
people are leaving social media, but like to get back into, oh, this is comfortable, how to be with each other again, when we're all, I think, in this post-COVID adjustment, like, of how do we want to do this? What do we want?
Yes.
I mean, that's
Yes.
why this podcast really exists, is because we are talking about these questions. Like, if not that, what else? Because that is the thing that's never talked about enough. Like, we could talk about what exists and why we don't like it, but what else is there? What would you replace it with? Like, what would work? What ideally, what would be the nurture culture beautiful thing? And I don't think, I mean, maybe we could just disregard it and go back to like the 90s where we made posters at Kinko's. I don't think that's where it's going. But it's an interesting question to ponder. Like, if you had your ideal version of it, what would it look like?
So I think it looks like it does look like, how do you connect in a real way with people on a daily basis? And so like I'm guilty of sending cat memes to my friends, but also like I'm trying to make a commitment to myself to like actually reach out with words to people that I love, like doing actually connecting to people I love, not just communicating via memes, not in addition to communicating with cat memes.
So
I'm
you don't want to
trying,
lose the cat memes.
I know I like
You
them.
want to hang on to the cat memes. So we're trying to design the new social media here, Iris. So we are for one, we're hanging on to the cat memes.
We have
The people who make those need to still exist and need to post them.
They do. But I think like, I mean, like I've started texting more. Okay, the full disclosure, I had been very reclusive for like 7 years when COVID hit. 7 years. I'm not like a little bit reclusive.
You're not a newbie. You're like, oh, I
No.
got this.
Yeah, I was just like, 2020 was the year I was going to stop being so reclusive.
That's funny.
And then I was like, oh, or not. Okay.
Or not.
And like, so there is that. Like, it's because I don't read as like a hermit. So I think it's really,
You don't not read as that.
that's because
No,
you've actually hung out with me and you know that I never leave my house. So, but so I am actively attempting to like reach out and make sure that I have some like calls with my people that I love that live far away. And like I'm actively, looking to connect to people. And then, it's my household. I mean, up until last fall, like I had, we had 4 people. That's like a town.
Yeah.
I mean, like
Yeah.
I had access to 3 people all the time that
Right.
I deeply love. So like now I'm down to one in-house person, but that's also that what a privilege that is.
I know. Like, I think that is part of me. Like, I'm down one.
Yeah,
I'm down
yeah.
one. It's just me over here and my dog. And it's like, yeah, it definitely does fill in the void, like the gap, if scrolling is just something to do, and I know I could be meditating and doing yoga and,
Not 12 hours a
writing and
day.
yeah, exactly. The brain is a muscle and it's, it gets tired. So if you're thinking and doing stuff during the day, it's like, what do you do to just decompress? And a lot of it's like, I don't want to think. I don't, and yet I'm like physically might be tired. I've done things all day, right? And so it's an interesting, like, I don't have a TV, I have a phone and a laptop. So yeah, I'm watching myself use it like that. And I did have this one moment where I was like, no screens after 7 p.m. That lasted for like a good 2 weeks, but it was
Oh, really?
really
I was like
interesting.
imagining that you were still doing that. I was
No,
like,
I'm not
Ginger
doing
does.
that. No, I tried it, but I'll tell you what happened. It was really good because you have to get really bored. And this is how it was back in the day. We sound so Gen Xy on this one. But like back in the day, you just got really, really bored. And then you think of things that maybe sounded like fun, And what I found myself doing was playing music on
Oh,
my,
nice.
and then just like, yeah, doing watercolor or, nothing that was mentally hard. Like reading sometimes, because my eyes are getting bad, is actually too much. Like it's like too much strain at night. I don't feel like reading. But I can do, yeah, just chill stuff. Like mostly just like simple art and music or I listen to a book on tape.
I am so in. I
But it,
self-soothe with book on tape.
but it definitely took churning off, like having a rule about it. The phone goes off and then I feel that very uncomfortable on my phone. And then, if I could get past that and I could just squirm my way through that, I usually ended up doing something way more interesting. I'll admit that. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, sometimes it just takes boundaries.
So I think here's a thing that happened a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure what date it was, but the AVA had the street fair. I think we were
Mhm.
talking about that last week, and
Yep.
I did
Yeah,
the
I saw it on
fish.
Instagram.
I know I did the fish prints.
That's how I knew about it, through
Oh,
social media.
I know. I mean, it is cool when you could see.
It's like,
Ironically, the gratitude post after it happened has just gotten like 400 likes.
see?
But like the before posts, the AVA put out some beautiful reels about and it's like a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Nothing, no traction whatsoever, and
Interesting.
not totally boring, but not very exciting post with just some
Yeah.
pictures has gotten just so much attention. It's like, that's interesting. But the thing that was cool about that is it wasn't like a huge number of people came, but all
Mhm.
the people that came were super into doing the activities. There were like three artists. So myself and I had the Indigo ink and I had a couple things for them to do. And then Carrie had this awesome like jelly print thing going on across the road. And then next to me, Amber had this, I think her name is Amber. I just met her for the first time, so I apologize if I don't have her name right. But she was doing these incredible like portraits on glass. She was
Oh
having,
yeah, I saw that. That was
oh
really
my
cool.
God, it
Yeah.
was so cool. And then there was a DJ,
Yeah, that's
two
awesome.
D two DJs playing music all day long. And it was like, even if sometimes there were like seriously like five people there in addition to the
Mhm.
people that were putting it on, it was
Good. That's
great. It was
good.
great
That's
all
good.
day
Yeah.
long. And I think that's the key is like, what was it? Why was it great all day? One, we had music, which I think is
Mhm.
really good.
Mhm.
And two, people were there because they wanted to be there. Then some people like happened upon it and then they were like all excited. And so like it's like, how do we get together with people and do things that make us sparkly? I think like, because
Exactly.
it's like like, yeah, like how do we make play dates with each other as a community?
Totally. I think that is the key, and it's a great place to end. It's like we're on there to make ourselves sparkly. Like really, I mean, if you're if you're gonna do it, don't do it for engagement, don't do it for followers, don't do it for, do it because it makes you feel sparkly to put it out there. I mean, I post my weird little coaching videos
I
all the
love
time.
those. I love
And
those.
that's me walking my dog, and all of a sudden a thought will occur to me, and I'll just whip my phone around and be like, blah, blah, blah. I don't rehearse them, I just post them. And they're just really fun. And sometimes one person will be like, they won't, no comments, no likes, but later in real life, they'll be like, I watched that video and it was really like, I needed that to hear that, So just also
I,
know
oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about that.
there's people, you know, engaging with you that you don't even know about. Again, like just going back to that, like do it because you want to do it. And if it's one person that you help, that's great. I mean, if you walked out of your house and you saw one person having a hard day and you sat down and said something like super inspirational to them and they turned to you and were like, thank you so much. Like that would be a big deal. Like, wow, I just did something really powerful. You can do that on social media I mean, you just don't realize it's happening. Instead, we're looking at it as a mirror of like our likability and approval. Don't look at it like that. Like that's the wrong.
No,
If you
no.
use it like that, it'll never be enough because it's the black hole that you're trying to fill. But if you use it as like, wow, this is sparkly. It just came through me. I have this cool idea to make this matter cranky thing. I'm gonna put that out there. Like you don't have to worry about what happens to it after that. It's like, it's a cat meme. Just release it to the universe and it will
I,
continue to bring joy as
I
it's
remember
passed
my
from friend to friend.
I remember my dad saying like once an idea like ideas have a life of their own, and once they're released they'll find their way, good or bad,
Yep.
positive or ill, like they have like kind of a life of their own. And
Yeah.
I think it's true. Like it's totally true. I think
I think
also
it's
like ideas they're like radio stations, back to the radio. They're like radio stations. Like sometimes, you think about like how much in history, like the periodic table was invented by more than one person at once. Like there's the gestalt of
yeah, for sure.
our whatever the
Yeah.
ethos is. And it's like, oh, I've got an antenna and I picked up this idea, but somebody else has probably picked it up too, because it's not me. It's not you. It's
Yeah.
not
The
that
whole
other
idea.
person.
Yeah. The idea of the 100th monkey with social media is very interesting because now ideas can transfer so quickly across the globe.
Yes.
I mean, like, yeah, it's incredible to really think of it that way. So I wouldn't throw any of that out. I think that the connectivity it's given us is changing the world faster and probably in more ways than we realize. But there's also incredible downsides to it. And then we just have to, yeah, I mean, it's here, so we're gonna have to just,
I think we have to look at it
yeah.
really as we have to seek out and look like in order, you have to see what's there.
Mhm.
And I think that sometimes it's hard to look at what's there in the world in general. It's really hard because we're just trying to operate. Everyone's muddling through.
Mhm.
But it's like if we can like realize, oh, like why I'm comparing myself to someone, a multi-billion dollar corporation that has
Right.
like a whole team to produce a reel or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not at all
Yeah.
competing with them, right? Like,
No, and you just said, like, honestly, I mean, it's so funny because they're trying to use their millions and billions of dollars to mimic what people
yes,
are
yes, yes,
homemade videos
yes,
that they're making,
yes.
and so like they're trying to get that like real homespun feel, but of course they can't because they're not that. But I think it's really amazing to like watch corporations fall all over themselves to imitate TikTokers who are like 15, who are just organically coming up with creative shit. I don't know. It's a really weird tool for us monkeys to have. So tread lightly is what I would say, and use it for sparkle magic. Share your sparkles. Just think of it as a giant party. It's a huge, crazy global party on there, and like there's a lot of people at the party trying to sell you stuff too. So you just gotta, and
Right.
anything that comes in a party is gonna be there. So just have fun. Get off, leave the party whenever you feel like it. There's no shame. You don't need to be at that party if you don't want to, but if you want to be in there looking for cat stuff and all the weirdos out there, they're there. They're all there for you. Uh, but certainly don't make it about anything real because it's not. It's not.
Right.
It's just
you're more marvelous and we're infinite beings. Like
Exactly.
you're so amazing. It can't be contained on a
Yeah, it
feed.
can't be quantified. And again,
No.
like just remember it's like the mycelium network is really a better description of the nurture culture web. Like if you're going to think of an internet that or a social media that nature does, it's like it's like this mutually invisible, mutually supportive network underground
Mhm.
that's feeding all life and supporting all life and communicating what everybody needs back and forth to each other. And in some gargantuan way is balancing the soil that we all depend on. I mean, think of it that way. Like
That versus
that's
parasitic.
exactly. That's how nature teaches us to do social media is the mycelium net, I think. And so
Hallelujah,
like
sister.
if I had to envision like the nurture culture future, it would look more like that. Like we use it to mutually support, uplift, nourish each other, find out where there's a need, send resources in that direction like a forest would. Like that would be the nurture culture version of social media that we all are keeping tabs on each other for good reasons. Like we want to make things more equal, spread abundance around where there's too much. Let's just redistribute it over here, heal things that are struggling, We just have to get our heads wrapped around that possibility, I think. And maybe kill
Awesome.
Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know. Maybe you have to overthrow an overlord there. I'm not sure. Maybe that the forest will
Oh,
take care of that on its own. Okay, I love you very
I
much.
love you very much. I
I will
want to
be
just do
posting this on social media later.
I know we will. I do want to do a little shout out that I have two upcoming classes in July
Okay.
that will be super sparkly and fun. One is all about creating rainbow cloth on silk. So little kaleidoscope rainbows using indigo and cochineal and Weldon. And the other one is the natural dyes for the book arts. So that one's like 3 days of totally just making stuff. It's not like I'm not going to be like trying to give people a master's degree in 3 days. I'm just going to set them up to make stuff and
No,
have
it's so
fun.
nice. Yeah, and like this is all being done at Sitka Center. If you guys haven't been to Sitka Center, it is the most beautiful, nurturing, gorgeous
Oh, it's on Cascade Head.
1970s like forest preserve. It's a beautiful, beautiful space just to be, much less hang out with Iris and do cool art stuff. But like it is really, really magical out there. So one of the best spots on the Oregon coast, I think, that you could go hang out at. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
Cascade Head is gorgeous. So that's all that. And then also I want to post that our little concert series is starting this weekend. My cousin Josh is going to be our first performer, and we have this cute little stage that we have down by the river, and we have these little acoustic sets that happen all summer long, and they're $25, and you can just bring your chair and your little picnic, and it's so sweet. You sit outside and it's like a audience of 25 people, no more, and we just get to have these intimate little venue for listening to really cool music. So
Oh,
it's
that also
special.
very special.
Very special. And Kathryn Claire is going to be there in the weekend of July. It's July 6th. So she's coming too. So that whole list of performers is on my website. And there's a season pass you could buy for $200. So you get
Oh,
all the
nice.
concerts, which is a great deal. And yeah, so I'm excited about that. So please check that out. And all the money goes to the artist, I should say, all of it. So it was something we signed up as the nonprofit to just fund artists during COVID because they were struggling finding gigs, and this was outdoors and small. And then we just kept it going because it's like a really nice moneymaker for local, small musicians. So, okay,
Oh,
that's
awesome.
cool
Thank
stuff you
you for
guys
doing
can
that.
do. Yeah, it's really fun, and uh, I just love you, Iris, so much.
I just love you.
I
It's
never
so
know where these
fun.
conversations are going to go, but I like it. I enjoy
Thanks.
it.
Thanks.
You all should know that we don't even talk about these before we get on. We just go. You probably, actually, they're probably like, yeah, we can tell. But just so you know, it's pretty magical over here. The mycelium is mycelium in our little connectivity.
From the northernmost part of Clatsop County to the
That's right.
southernmost
That's
part of
right.
Clatsop
There's
County.
some
And there is
thread.
there's woods behind my house, and it
That's
kind of
right.
is.
There probably is a mycelium thread to
Yeah,
replace stone
yeah.
face. For sure there is actually. Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
There's gonna be a short story coming up from Iris about this. A cranky, it's gonna happen.
All
All
right.
right.
I love
I
you.
love
Bye.
you. See ya.
See you next week.
Oh my goodness.